Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Alexa, and in today's video I'm going to be talking about all of the books that I read in the month of April. I read 12 books, and of course before we jump into the books, we are going to look at my genre breakdown pie chart. So I ended up reading 3 romance books, 3 thriller mystery books, 1 historical fiction book, 2 general fiction books, 2 YA books, and 1 fantasy book. I thought it would also be fun to include how many books I actually read from the monthly TBR that I picked out. So these are the books that I picked out in my April TBR video, and I ended up reading 4 of them, which is not terrible. Definitely could have done better, but honestly, 4 is pretty good. I'll take it. All right, let's start talking about all of the books that I read. The first one is Divine Rivals by Rebecca Ross. This is the stunning UK cover that I love so much. If you don't know what this book is about, it is a YA romantasy, and it's following 2 characters who are connected via these magical typewriters. And they both have their own things going on in their lives, good and bad, and they are able to confide in each other through the magical typewriters. And this ended up being so phenomenal. I absolutely loved this book. The way I'm describing the plot really doesn't sound like much, but when I'm telling you that I was captivated and blown away by this book, you'll just have to take my word for it. But this was truly a phenomenal story. It was so well crafted, and I feel like there was so much heart in it, and I really have absolutely no critiques for it. So if you're thinking about picking up this book, I would highly recommend it. I gave this book 5 stars. The next book that I read is House of Glass by Sara Pekkanen. This is a thriller mystery book that is in the POV of a, I believe, child welfare lawyer. I think that's what she is. But anyways, we are following this lawyer and basically her trying to figure out what happened in this family. So essentially, the nanny of this family that the lawyer is representing had an unfortunate death at their house. And after the death of the nanny, the daughter of this family no longer speaks. So this then makes her a prime suspect. So the lawyer is pretty much just trying to get to the bottom of things. I tend to be on the pickier side with my thriller mystery books, but I have to say that I really enjoyed this one. I felt like the writing was incredibly addicting and bingeable. It has that kind of cliffhanger effect at the end of every chapter, which then makes you want to read the next chapter and the next chapter and the next chapter. I'm pretty sure I finished this book in 1 day, so if that doesn't tell you how bingeable it is, I don't know what will. I think there were a handful of aspects in this book that were not super thrilling or mysterious, which is why it's not like a 5-star for me. But like I said, super addictive writing and very bingeable, so I ended up giving this book 4 stars. The next book I read is Water Moon by Samantha Sotto Yambao. So this book is essentially centered around this magical pawn shop that our main character Hannah, I don't know which it is, inherits. So for some people, they are able to see the pawn shop and go in and pawn their life choices and deepest regrets. But some people are not able to see the pawn shop, and instead there is a cozy ramen shop in its place. So it's kind of like there are only certain types of people that are supposed to be going to the pawn shop, otherwise you'll only be able to see the ramen shop. Anyways, this girl inherits the pawn shop, and she ends up finding it ransacked on her first day as the new owner. So her and a customer end up going on a journey to figure out the truth and come to terms with the decisions that they have made in life and their regrets. I thought this book was so magical, and as you can see, I did annotate it. There are so many really thought-provoking quotes in this book, and I just felt very like transported while I was reading this book. I felt like I was in this world with these characters on their mission with them. I love when a book can just completely remove me from reality and insert me into a fictional world, and this book did exactly that. If you like the movie Everything Everywhere All at Once and any Studio Ghibli movie, you would absolutely love this book. I gave this book 4 stars. The next book I read is Heir of Fire by Sara J. Maas, and this is the 4th book, I believe, that I have read in the Throne of Glass series. I read Throne of Glass and then Crown of Midnight and then Assassin's Blade. So yeah, the 4th book since I read Assassin's Blade 3rd. There's not too much that I can say about this book because it is pretty deep into a series, so obviously I don't want to spoil anything for you guys. But I have to say that this is definitely my least favorite book in the series so far. But I will say that I feel like this book sets up the next book really well, so I'm hoping that I really enjoy the next one because of this book. We will see. But I gave this book 3.5 stars. The next book that I read is Sourdough by Robin Sloan. Sorry, it's like a super glossy cover because I got this from the library and it has that like plastic film on the front, but this is a book that I read in high school before I was into tracking my reading progress and rating books and all of that. But I remembered loving it so much, but I couldn't remember too much about it because I didn't write down any of my thoughts on it at the time or rate it at the time. And I was perusing the library one day and I saw this book and I was like, I should read that again. So I did, and I'm very happy to report that this is an amazing book, just like I remember it being. Don't get me wrong, sometimes there are things that I liked when I was younger and then I revisit them now and I'm like, I think I was delusional back then, but not this. This is actually good. This book starts out with us following our main character, Lois, and she is working a tech job in San Francisco that she hates. She is consuming all of her dietary nutrients via a prepackaged gray goo, and she's just generally unhappy. But one day a takeout menu shows up at her door and she orders some food from this restaurant, and her whole life changes after she orders food from this restaurant. And I don't really want to say any more than that because by the end of this book, you end up so far away from where you were on the first page. And I think that is like why I loved this book so much. It is the most like rampant and exhilarating and rewarding book. I just think it's so quaint, but also insane. Don't sleep on this book. Give it a chance. I gave it 5 stars. The next book I read is another book by Robin Sloan, and this is a more popular book of his. It's called Mr. Penumbra's 24-Hour Bookstore. We are following Clay, who is living in San Francisco, working a web design job that he hates. I mean, starting out pretty similarly to this book. And he then discovers Mr. Penumbra's 24-Hour Bookstore, where he gets a job. But after a while, he starts to realize that there is more to this bookstore than meets the eye. He gets suspicious and enlists the help of his friends to discover the bookstore's secrets and what lies beyond its walls. I think much like Sourdough, the initial plot of this book doesn't sound like much, but again, you are going to go on an exhilarating journey with these characters and end up so far away from where you started on page 1. I also love Robin Sloan's writing, but I do have to say that I did not love this book nearly as much as I loved Sourdough. The thing about this book is that it is centered around a magical library, and I am just super picky with stories that involve magical libraries. I am also a midnight library book hater, so yeah, I think unfortunately this book reminded me of the Midnight Library a little bit, and that just put a bad taste in my mouth. But I do love Robin Sloan's writing, and I do think this book is a super fun adventure. I just kind of wish maybe it had a different setting than a magical library. I, for whatever reason, have a problem with that. Oh, I gave this book 3.5 stars. The next book that I read is actually an advanced reader's copy that was gifted to me by NetGalley, so thank you so much to NetGalley for allowing me to read this book early. The book is Can't Get Enough by Kennedy Ryan, which was one of my most anticipated releases of 2025. If you guys know me, you know that I love the Skyland series by Kennedy Ryan. So each book in this series is following one of the women in this 3-woman friend group. And I would say each of them have a more unconventional experience with romance. And I think that's what makes this series so interesting, is that it's not a typical cookie cutter romance. They are all following an iconic woman from the Skyland trio, and they're all inspiring and resilient and beautifully balanced. I think Can't Get Enough delivered a captivating finale to the Skyland series. It was an absolute joy to read, and Kennedy Ryan's extraordinary talent for crafting fictional characters that feel real shines through in this book yet again. I care for these characters so deeply, and I very often forget that they are in fact fictional. All of the books that I have read from her so far have incredible representation, emotional depth, and authenticity, and this book is no exception. This book is coming out May 13th if you guys are interested, and I gave this book 4 stars. The next book that I read is Heartwood by Amity, Gaige, and this was the Read with Jenna book club pick for April. This book is essentially following a search and rescue for a woman who gets lost while hiking on the Appalachian Trail. I have to say that, first of all, this cover is just not something that I would typically probably gravitate towards. And additionally, the synopsis of this book is not the most captivating, so I had pretty low expectations for this book, if I'm being honest. But I was pleasantly surprised and actually really ended up enjoying this book. It has a really fresh format, which made the book super easy to read. It has multiple letters, interviews, text exchanges, radio transcriptions, and a lot of different POVs. So you're kind of constantly changing up the format in which you are consuming the story. So yeah, like I said, I feel like that keeps it very fresh and fast-paced. The ending was honestly pretty suspenseful, so yeah, I honestly liked this. I didn't expect to, but I'm happy to say that I did like it. I gave it 4 stars. The next couple of books I recently included in a 24-hour reading vlog, so if you guys want more of my in-depth thoughts on these, I will link that video in the description for you to check out. The first book is The Confessions of Franny Langton by Sara Collins, and this is a historical fiction book following Franny Lankton trying to clear her name after being associated with a double murder of her employers. I initially thought that this book sounded interesting, but once I read it, I was proved wrong. I think this book pretty much missed the mark in every aspect possible. Unfortunately, I read a lot of words in this book, but they did not say very much. I gave this book 2 stars. The next book I read is The Finalists by David Bell, and I also hated this book. It's following a group of students that are competing for a prestigious scholarship, and this book needed a laugh track on it because the whole thing felt like a joke. I gave this book 2 stars. And the final book from that video is A Cosmic Kind of Love by Samantha Young. I hate using this phrase, but this was honestly the perfect palate cleanser rom-com for me. I read it immediately after finishing reading these two books that I hated. So yeah, hence palette cleanser. It is following a party planner and an astronaut, and they have a very interesting meet cute, which I think is honestly just more fun if you go into it blind, so I'm not going to describe it for you. But yeah, it's unique, it's fun, it's entertaining. Is it a masterpiece? No. But honestly, guys, I am not thinking about this book too deeply. It gave what it needed to give when I read it, and that's really all I have to say. I gave this book 3 stars. And the final book that I read in the month of April, along with everybody else in the world, is Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. My friend is borrowing my book right now, so I don't have the physical copy at the moment. But this was Emily Henry's 2025 new release. It is following 2 writers that are competing for the chance to write a memoir for a celebrity that nobody has heard from for years. So I have been seeing a lot of reviews for this book online, and I feel like people are not liking this book. I don't know how that is possible because I thought this was amazing. I completely get that it's different from her other books, but I think she did an amazing job incorporating more fiction elements and honestly some mystery elements into this book, but still keeping the romance at the forefront, still giving it a good amount of emotional depth. I don't know. I think this was really, really good. I genuinely don't know how people are not liking this book. I'm actually confused. The only thing I would criticize about this book is I wish there was a bit slower of a burn between our 2 romantic subjects. But aside from that, this is definitely in my top 3. Yeah, I'm gonna say it's in my top 3 Emily Henry books. And I gave this book 4.5 stars. All right, those are all of the books that I read in the month of April. Let me know what books you read in the month of April. But that is going to be all for today's video. If you guys liked this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up and leave a comment down below letting me know anything you want to let me know. Also, feel free to follow me on Instagram and Goodreads. They are always linked in the description below. And make sure that you are subscribed so that you can see more videos from me in the future. But for now, that is all, and I will see you guys in my next video. Bye. My voice is getting really raspy. The next book that I read, wait. I think this is overdue. Okay, I need to return this as soon as I'm done filming. Am I saying that right? I'm still drinking coffee and it's 3 p.m. Wait, why am I not drinking water?